Finally, the Pistons have won a basketball game. That was probably really loud in your ears. My bad.
It's all good. I think headphones might have blown just a little bit right there. But yeah, finally a freaking win. Going to collect my wings tomorrow because who wouldn't? God damn, dude. It feels so good. Like oh my God, bro. I don't even know how to express myself right now. It's only 3 wins on the season, but damn, the losing streak is finally over. This is amazing. I can't believe it. And it's so fitting that it happened against the Raptors. I hope that is the longest, saddest drive home for all those fans that were here tonight in Detroit.
Yeah, the Craptors, as I call them. Bro, that was a hell of a game, too. Like, Cade, obviously, he didn't shoot well from the field, but he got to the line. That's what I love to see. He didn't shoot it particularly well from the field, but hey, man, he was. I believe he went to the line at least 10 times a night, which I told you like a month ago. That should be the norm for him, the type of player he is. So, happy with his performance from the free throw line. Jalen Duren, Pistons missed him so much, man, and I'm so happy to see him wearing those braces on both ankles. Because every time he falls, I just hold my breath. I was like, oh, God, please get up, please get up, please get up. But, dude, I'm so happy that this monkey is off the Detroit Pistons back. I'm so happy that I don't have to log onto social media to see a cringy post about the Pistons haven't won a game. Or it seems like people have just been poking fun at the Bear for 2 months. It's finally over. Thank God.
It almost happened against the Celtics, but they blew the 19-point lead. That was probably one of the better games the Pistons, even though it ended in a loss, but that was still a fun game. But damn, dude, I said that 3 times already. This was a heck of a game. Cade, 30 points, 12 assists, 10 for 10 from the free throw line. Duren, 18 and 17, and he went 6 for 6 from the free throw line. Kevin Knox had I cannot stop tweeting about him. Kevin Knox just played phenomenal. 7 of 14, 3 for 8 from the 3-point line, 17 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 1 big fucking block, dude. I didn't even know he could do that. And holy crap, dude. And then Bojan, he did his thing too. Jaden Ivey did a bunch of stuff that won't end up on the box score. He got to the line 12 times. It was funny too. One of the I don't know why I just said Canadian broadcasters. One of the Toronto Raptors broadcasters was like, Jaden Ivey hasn't hit a free throw all night. And he was like 4 for 7 at the time. And he kept calling Duren Doran. And then Alec Burks found his shooting stroke. He only missed 2 shots all night. It was just an incredible performance all around by them. I will say the only negative, Killian Hayes, dude, had too many turnovers. It was scaring me a little bit. My heart was just beating out of rhythm every time he was on the floor. I don't understand why he keeps playing over Sasser. But I'm not going to be too negative because it is a W, and we finally ended the losing streak.
Yeah, every time I was listening to the Raptors announcers, it was just like, it's a Canadian with a really bad New York accent. Yes. It was just like, we'll be right back after the first quarter. I was just like, dude, shut up. It's like Pascal Siakam. I was like, it's Siakam, dude. Jesus, like, can you enunciate? But I am really happy that the Pistons did win. Even happier that the Raptors broadcast had to, announce that game. Like they kept thinking the Raptors were going to come back and win. Pistons finally won. Thank God. For whatever reason, the streaming site that I watch never has the Pistons broadcast, but I heard, I think it was Johnny Kane and Greg Kelser tonight. So I'm sure, Pistons fans were definitely lit tonight after the game. Seems like there were more Pistons fans there tonight too than Raptors fans, which was good to see. Like the camera, like I felt so bad. Like you could tell this kid was like special needs, and they kept putting the camera on him at LC. I was like, come on, he was a Raptors fans on top of it. I was like, come on, don't do that. Like this, there was at least like 20 to 40 Raptors fans in that section, and they put it on the kid that's like, special needs. I was like, come on, dude, that's fucked up.
I'm not even gonna make a comment. That's just crazy to me. But yeah, the Toronto Raptors broadcaster, I don't know if you know this name, but he sounded like the ESPN boxer analysis, Freddie Roach. That's what I thought, who I was listening to the entire time. I was like, this is kind of crazy. Nice little crossover. Sports don't make sense, but hey, we're getting Freddie Roach on the broadcast. So we're getting into this right now. The Detroit Pistons did break the all-time losing streak held by the process Sixers. The losing streak is the worst it will ever get for the Detroit Pistons. I mean, I know we're coming off the high of a W. There are better times ahead of us. It's a long tunnel. The light is at the end of it. And we will, I do strongly believe this, we will experience a couple more losing seasons before we actually see winning basketball in Detroit. And I'm talking like not just a winning streak, but a winning season. It will be a couple more years before we actually see a winning season in Detroit. But we need to celebrate this W big time and just, not let the losing streak, just take us off this high too quickly.
Hey, man, playoff push. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. So I came up with a list of things that we'll see before the Pistons have a winning season. Some of them are dumb, but I'm going to share them. Number one was both of LeBron James' sons will suit up for an NBA team. The Detroit Lions will win a Super Bowl. Hooray. The NBA will expand. We'll see the WNBA become profitable. Slam ball will end and restart with more hype than ever. And Chris Paul and Scott Foster will become friends. That all will happen before we see a Detroit Pistons winning season.
Jesus, man, what is wrong with you? All of those things are depressing and like very, very unlikely. Like we just lost 7 viewers after that. Holy crap. Come on, man. Let's be more positive about this Pistons win. I'm happy about it. Scott Foster and Chris Paul will never get along. I think you'd probably see a celebrity boxing match before that does happen.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. But come on, man. Like let's stay positive on this train. We're not saying the Pistons are gonna make the playoffs. We're not saying, they're gonna go on like a 15-game winning streak. They'll probably lose some more games this season, but it's good to get that monkey off their back. You could tell the players were so happy. Jalen Duren slammed the court. Cade Cunningham was smiling into the camera. Like that. For the players, I'm happy that they won a basketball game because you could tell it was weighing on them heavily. I'm just happy for them. I'm happy for not only the players but the fans too. I think the fans have been through it. The fans have been through it with people making fun of Pistons fans every game. The fans have been through it in terms of you have ESPN saying, what's wrong with Monty Williams? What's wrong with the Detroit Pistons? Why are they broken? What's wrong with this team? I'm just really happy that they did get a win against a Toronto Raptors team that was kind of depleted today because they did trade OG Anunoby to the Knicks, which was not really too surprising if you see who OG Anunoby's agent is and you kind of look at like his client list. Has a lot of New York Knicks on it, so happy for the Knicks that they did get OG. They got him for basically nothing, by the way.
Oof.
Which I thought that was such a great trade for them. But dude, I'm so happy that we're doing a podcast on a win. I can't remember the last time we've done a podcast on a win.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time we actually started recording right after a win. I don't think I know the last win came before Halloween, but I don't know if we recorded directly after the win. But either way, it's very happy. And I just want to make it clear, though, we were supposed to talk about the losing streak. We didn't. I don't think either of us expected a win tonight, even though we did see a depleted Raptors team. I thought that trade, by the way, was actually pretty fair because I am a huge Emmanuel Quickley fan. I don't know a ton about RJ Barrett. I think he's a solid 2-guard, but Emmanuel Quickley is about to have a breakout campaign in Toronto. He's a very good player. Kind of sad, though, that the Detroit Pistons were actually a part of that trade, though, with the second-round pick that the Knicks traded. So we were kind of in it, which is kind of cool, I guess, in a way. But the Knicks, man, they're making a push to maybe make some noise in the playoffs as well. They just got to shore up that 2-guard spot now. Shams Charania gave us a few names to keep an eye on that could possibly sign with the Detroit Pistons this offseason. The names are Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, which is probably not going to happen now that he went to the New York Knicks, Tobias Harris, and fan favorite Miles Bridges. Me personally, I want to see Pascal Siakam play for the Detroit Pistons. Just another guy that can create his own shot, plays with a ton of energy. He can create for others. He's another guy that Cade or Ivy could drive and kick out to and hit an open 3. He's a very good player that I think is going to have a few more years playing at a high level left in the NBA. I think the most realistic option, though, is Miles Bridges just because of his connection to the state of Michigan. And he is, I know some fans don't want to hear it, but he is having a pretty good season right now for the Charlotte Hornets. He's averaging 19 points, shooting 44% from the field, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and half a block per game. He is only shooting 31% from 3, which is down from his career of 34%. But Miles Bridges, I know all this stuff bothers people that happened off the floor, and that's fair if you feel that way. But he is still a good basketball player. I just want to finish it with that. But what name intrigues you the most out of these 4 names?
Well, the name that intrigued me the most was Pascal Siakam. My only concern with Pascal is the shooting from the perimeter. He's not known to be an elite 3-point shooter, and that's not really his game. His game is more in the post than the perimeter, which I think a lot of Pistons fans know that. They know that he's more of that, post presence. He kind of looks like the Tasmanian Devils at times, just the way he just with the spin moves and stuff like that. But I think Pascal has always been a name that a lot of Pistons fans look at the power forward position. It's like, yeah, I would like that guy on my basketball team. He's a good player. I would like him, but at the same time, I think Tobias Harris, to me, I've told you, I think he's more realistic than anyone on this list.
Okay.
I'm not going to speak on the Miles Bridges off the court stuff because it's not my place to talk about what he went through or what he did, I should say. And I can understand why some fans don't want him anywhere near the Detroit Pistons. It would actually kind of go against everything the Detroit Pistons have preached to us. We go after the person, not the player.
Yep.
So I kind of think it's contradictory. I was kind of surprised when Shams did mention his name this week, but for me, I would like Pascal Siakam, but I think ultimately Tobias Harris to me would probably be the most realistic, forward they go after. That's a name that the organization is familiar with. They traded for him once. Possibly they could trade for him again during this trading deadline or wait to see in free agency, what a number for him would be. But I think Tobias to me would make the most sense for this team just for the fact that he can score at all 3 levels and he's really familiar with this organization. And, he was a part of a team that made the playoffs. So I know he's a little bit on the older side, but that's just kind of my take on it with all these players that Shams did report this week. Obviously like Pascal, but I just don't know how realistic that could possibly be, especially when you're going to have a lot of teams in free agency trying to, bid you, even though you do have practically 50, 60 million in cap space, depending on what you do during this trading deadline. I just think, do you really want to max out a guy like a Pascal Siakam who's not known to be a 3-point shooter? Or would you rather possibly, pay Tobias Harris and he can at least hit a 3-point shot, at least league average? So that's kind of like my only argument with it.
I will say just real quick before we move on, Pascal, 3 seasons, he made 34% or better. He actually hit 37% on 3 attempts per game his 3rd year in the league, and then 36% on 6 attempts per game his 4th year, his first All-Star appearance. I think when he has the larger offensive role, that's when you see the efficiency start to dip. That's why I think if he were to play, even though the Pistons aren't good, but if he was to play with a playmaker like Cade and Jaden Ivey, who do create a lot of gravity when they're going to the hoop or operating in the mid-range, he would get a lot of open looks. And I think that 3-point percentage would kick up a little bit more, but he's not shooting the ball very well this year at only 25% a game. But he's a guy that once you get him at the top of the key and he does that little, like you were saying, that Tasmanian Devil spin move. I mean, we've seen it a bunch tonight. It's so effective. And that's a guy, even he's 29 right now. He'll be 30, I think, next year. Probably even going into his 31st, going in to be 31. I still think he could be effective like that just because his game isn't really relied a ton on athleticism. He does need that quick first step, which eventually he will lose. But, I mean, still playing at a high level in his early 30s, I think that's something Pascal Siakam could do. Out of this list, I do like Tobias Harris. He's a little bit older. But if I were to throw the bank at someone, it would be Pascal Siakam on this list, just because I think he could have make the largest improvement on this team just because of the role he could play. I mean, another 20-point scorer an effective defender, not a great one, but an effective defender, I think that would really help this team out. I just don't see it actually happening for any of these guys though coming to Detroit. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I can get why people want Pascal. He's younger. Like career-wise, he's shooting 32% from three. Tobias, career-wise, is shooting 36, almost 37%. So, I mean, it's not that I don't like Pascal. I do. I just question fit.
Yeah.
I think fit-wise, Tobias makes more sense on paper. But who am I to say that Pascal wouldn't fit with Cade Cunningham? I'm sure, they could find a way for those two to coexist together. I just kind of question because you have so much money tied up, like Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley. What are you doing there at that power forward position? I mean, Marvin Bagley was a DMP tonight again. Like, I don't know what his future holds. Like, is he on the trading block? Do the Pistons want to move on from Bagley? Do they see Wiseman as more of that backup center? I don't know. There's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself as an organization and as fans too watching this. I think fans are very vocal about wanting guys like a Siakam, like a Kuzma, like a Jeremy Grant, like a Tobias. Even, some fans are with the Miles Bridges stuff. Like, I get it. I just think you need 3-and-D wings to help Cade Cunningham. I mean, you put Kevin Knox in the game and you see what happens when you put a competent player that can shoot 3-pointers and put the ball on the floor a little bit. I mean, if you get this team some 3-and-D wings to complement, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham, you're going to see more wins on the basketball court. So I think any of these guys would, help Cade Cunningham out a lot. I just kind of question the fit with Siakam in terms of, the paint being clogged up, because if you want Siakam to be here in Detroit, he's going to really have to, shoot the 3-point shot closer to 35% for, I think, a lot of fans to be willing to give him that bag that he's probably going to be seeking this summer.
That makes sense. And those are all very fair points. Bojan will not be traded this season unless the Detroit Pistons receive an offer that they can't refuse. This report comes from Jane Edwards III. I called it a couple of podcasts ago when I said this guy won't get traded. I do not see Troy Weaver trading him. I know that last season there was a contender offering 2 first-round picks. I do not think that's the case this year. Bojan is playing pretty well, but you can notice that he's a step slower than he was last season. The time to trade him was last year. I think even though he's still playing well, I think the value has dipped quite a bit. And those teams, and why wouldn't you lowball the Pistons? They really, they're in a position where they have no advantage in any of these trades. So Bojan will remain a Piston. He's going to be 35 at the end of this year. He'll be 36 by the end of next season. I do understand why the Detroit Pistons would want to keep him, but do we really see them making, huge improvements to this roster that makes sense of keeping Bojan and potentially bringing him off the bench as a scorer in that role? I don't know. I don't see it happening, but I get the logic behind it. But I'm on the train of we should have traded him and we should just try to get something for him, because this season is lost by all accounts. I mean, there's no way they come back from this.
It's so conflicting. Last week we reacted to Tom Gores saying we require change, we need the change, and then this part of James Edwards III's article, it wasn't a Bojan piece. It was a piece with Sam Vecini, and they were talking. James once in a while will kind of just throw little tidbits in there that you're not really expecting, and this was a tidbit saying the Pistons don't plan to trade Bojan Bogdanovic unless they get a really handsome offer. And that's kind of been the message we've had over the past couple of years with Bojan Bogdanovic on the roster. The Pistons like Bojan a lot. They want to keep him. And you see the type of value he adds to this team when he plays with Cade Cunningham. Now, obviously, we didn't get to see it because he was injured for a big portion of the season this year, but you see the instant impact. The numbers back it up offensively. When Cade and Bojan are on the floor, they produce points and the offense looks a lot better. It flows a lot better. But at the same time, you have to tell yourself, the guy's 34. He's going to be 35 next season, I believe. I don't know his birthday off the top of my hand. He's on a $20 million contract. I believe going into this summer, it's non-guaranteed. It goes from like $3 million if you waive him by a certain date or if you want to trade him. He's valuable, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's our second leading scorer at almost 20 points a game, right behind Cade, that has, I believe, 23 or 24 points a game. I like Bojan a lot, but at some point, if a team is going to offer you something for Bojan, if a team offers you a first-round pick for Bojan, you have to consider it. You're not going to get this haul you think you're going to get. You're not going to get these 2 first-round picks that you think you're going to get. I think asking for 2 first-round picks for a player like Bojan, I think, is a little bit unreasonable.
Yeah.
20 points a game at 34, dude, that's impressive. That's damn impressive. But at the same time, you have to look at this team's future. Like, Bojan isn't going to be a part of this team when this young core is trying to compete for the playoffs. He's just not. We have to be reasonable and be realistic. Bojan Bogdanovic is not going to be here for another, 5 to 6 years. If you can get something from a contending team, whether that's a young player, maybe a draft pick, you have to consider it. We like him as a player, but this organization sometimes holds onto players, veteran players, I should say, too long, and the value just goes out the window. I mean, we held on to Derrick Rose way too long when the Lakers were willing to give the Detroit Pistons Alex Caruso and Talen Horton-Tucker in a first-round pick, and we ended up trading him to the New York Knicks for Dennis Smith Jr. in a second-round pick. So that's my biggest thing. It's like, if you can get good value for Bojan, you have to consider it. Now, I understand the Pistons standpoint of, they want to be good. They don't want to give him away for nothing. You shouldn't give him away for nothing. But if there's a good offer on the table, you have to consider making a deal, in my opinion, anyways.
I'm even at the point, too, where even if you can get a veteran that's in like their late 20s that fits more along the timeline of the young core winning, maybe a veteran that has some playoff experience, I'm okay with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be draft picks or another young player, because this team's already young enough. But if you could find 2 bench pieces that can be a part of an 8-10 man rotation, I think you got to take it. But holding on to them with the hopes that you're going to be better next year, when Troy has really showed us nothing in terms of improving this roster in the last 2 off seasons, it's something that you just got to get what you can for him at this point. And I don't know what the holdup is. I agree with you. When this team is ready to compete, he'll be retired. He'll be sitting comfortable back home. He won't be playing at that time. So I just don't know what it's all about. I hate reading reports like this because it just shows me the ineptitude of Troy Weaver, and that it's really putting me in that realm of thinking that he really doesn't know what he's doing at the GM spot. And it's just terrible to hold on to assets like this when you could have flipped him at some point when he was he's still having a great year, but it wasn't like last year where, he really could have helped a contender out. I mean, I would maybe call Charlotte up and see I've already said his name before, but around January 15th, try to bring in like a PJ Washington, if Charlotte's more inclined to keep Miles Bridges or whatever, because he runs with LaMelo, maybe see if you can sneak a trade like that in, or maybe call the New York Knicks back up, or I don't know, just somebody, and get something for Bojan before, because he's another one of those guys I just don't want to see dwindle and just watch in Detroit until his career is over, when his career was just a few fun regular season games instead of playoff basketball. I just don't want to see that. I'm a little selfish that way, but I say trade Bojan if you can.
The one thing you said that I do want to disagree with, I don't like the Troy Weaver comment that you made. You said he doesn't know what he's doing. I think he does know what he's doing, but I've told you several times, I don't think he has full reign of actually what he gets to do.
That's fair.
No, Tom Gores says it's Troy and I making decisions. I don't buy that. I've told you, I think there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I think there's 3-4 people trying to make a decision and they can't agree. Not defending Troy by any means. I mean, he's made some questionable draft choices. He's made some questionable free agent signings. He's not getting a pass from me. But at the same breath, I think that he is a good talent evaluator when it comes to the draft. It's just free agency. I don't know whether this front office can't agree on a player. They don't see a big fish that they think they can land. I think overall, Troy is probably the best talent evaluator that the Pistons have had in quite a long time. This is the most young talent they've had, probably my entire Piston fandom. I just wanted to kind of say that, but I do agree with you with the, holding on to veteran players like that. Like, if you can get something, get something.
No, and I think there are parts that Troy Weaver is good at. Like you're saying, the talent evaluation. I mean, he sit on a few draft picks. It's just the other parts of being a GM where maybe you're right. Maybe it is because he doesn't have full control of the team. And that's fair. Like, that is fair. We just don't know that. That's just more speculation on our part from things we've heard, reports that we've read, quotes that have been dropped by some people in the front office. So, like, I still like Troy Weaver. I think there are parts of his job that he's good at. I just think the overall, it could be a lot. It could be a daunting task to be building a team. And I don't know. I guess time will only tell. We do have some injury news for you guys. Isaiah Stewart will be out 10 to 14 days with is it really a right great toe strain?
No, just his right toe.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I wrote great.
I think it was a typo on Woj.
What?
I was because I read it a few times. It is a right toe sprain. Be out 10 to 14 days, and kind of sucks that he did get injured. Obviously, I do like Stewart, but I've kind of told you, like, even listening to all these broadcasts, they're like, dude, Stewart would be such a good player off the bench for that. Like, the Celtics couldn't say enough great things about Isaiah Stewart. Like, yo, we'd love an Isaiah Stewart off our bench. Like, he's just that ultimate glue, ultimate energy guy. But, I'm wishing him well. Hope his toe does heal up. I think James Edwards had reported that Isaiah Stewart is like a huge sneakerhead, and he's been just walking in Crocs because his foot hurts so damn bad. So, heal up, Beefs, too.
Yep.
I miss you.
Do you think that there's any chance now that the Pistons have won a game, going with two forwards like Bojan and Kevin Knox, that Monty actually brings Isaiah Stewart off the bench going forward? Or do you think that he becomes a starter again when he returns from injury?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. But you do make a fair point. We've seen what happens when you put two perimeter shooters next to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. The offense looks a lot better. Kevin Knox looks like Tracy McGrady out there. Like, I don't know what has gotten into him, but he had like you said earlier in the podcast, he had like a crazy block, and then he saved the ball and passed it to Cade. He was hitting his 3-point shots tonight. He's just such a good complement at that forward position. I think it's something you do have to consider, though, if you are Monty Williams, because I know the two big lineup is something that this organization is like really stubborn on, but I've told you I don't think it's going to work here. I really don't. I think ultimately just go with one big and just go 4 out, in my opinion. I think it makes more sense in the modern NBA. This isn't the 90s anymore where you can just have two bigs and just throw it down on in the paint. But I don't know. To me, I would keep doing the Knox and Bojan because it's working.
And I mean, like you had already said earlier, like bringing Isaiah Stewart off the bench, other broadcasts have talked about it, and we've talked about it in this podcast to exhaustion. He would be so good at that backup 5 spot, picking on second units with that energy and that hustle. And he could still close out games if he's feeling it, bring that defensive pressure. That would be a nice 1-2 combo between him and Duren at the 5 spot. Duren starting, Isaiah Stewart coming off the bench. One quick note about Kevin Knox. He is my favorite in-game dunker on the Detroit Pistons, by the way. When he's on a fast break and he just cocks it back with the right hand, he's going to dunk it. It is so cool, man. He is, man, I hope Kevin Knox I don't think he's ever going to figure it out and be an all-star, but I hope he is a player in Detroit for many years because I really do love his game. He's a fun guy when he gets it rolling.
Yeah, I mean, he put a poster on Yoka Pirtle. He had a fast break dunk with Jaden Ivey. He's just so athletic. And to your point, I think I don't really need him to be an all-star. I just need him to be a complimentary piece of role player at the end of the day. And he's done that. I'm still surprised that the Pistons did get rid of him when they did sign him to a 2-year contract. I'm really surprised by that because he just fits so well. Like, if we didn't have the injuries that we have, like, who knows if he's even actually here. Because I remember Troy's like, oh, yeah, we're going to be really careful about her last roster spot. And I remember fans were just like, really, Kevin Knox? But I think right now people are like, Kevin Knox, let's go.
And I do think those are sometimes the guys you have to target when you're a team like Detroit. You have to find those guys that they're kind of specialists in their role. Maybe they haven't lived up to the hype, but they still have game to be a rotation piece, and that's Kevin Knox. So Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham took offense to the fans chanting, sell the team. I don't know why they took offense to it, because I'm sure they hear much worse things on social media and when they're playing away games. It's just, I think when the fans say that, it can be warranted sometimes, because I think it was Keith Smith that said, either Keith Smith or Sam Vecini, it was one of their tweets, maybe it was somebody else, where they're saying like a good team is a product of a great owner. And that is why there are some teams that are always near the top, because they have an owner that is invested and really cares about the product they're putting on the floor or the field. And sometimes with Tom Gores, it doesn't really seem that way. But then there are other times where he's willing to spend the money where it does. So I don't know. I guess we'll give it a few more years to see how he really cares about this team. But I didn't think selling the team chant was that bad. And it's just an odd thing for them to bring up in their press conference. I don't know if there's more to it or not.
Yeah, I saw the comments. The way the players took it was like, if you're not with us during this losing streak, then don't be with us when we, start winning games. And my thought process behind this, and I even saw some, fans like tell the beat reporters, like, hey, like tell the players that this isn't directed towards them.
Yeah.
And that's the way I took it too. Because when we were playing, I want to say it was the Nets. There was really loud of fans saying sell the team. And the way I took it, it wasn't directed towards the players. It was directed towards the owner at the end of the day. That was directed toward Tom Gores. Because a lot of Pistons fans speculated with the sell the team chance. Like, oh, you want to move the Pistons? You want them to relocate? No, I mean, you can sell the team and still keep the team in Detroit.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they read the Tom Gores letter to the fans, quote unquote, it wasn't really a letter, but you know what I mean. When they saw the last quote saying we've done a lot into the community outside of winning basketball games, I think that just pissed fans off a lot. But like, dude, no one gives a shit if you're charitable. Winning basketball games should be your number one priority. Nobody cares that you donate, bicycles to these kids. Like, actually put that same amount of effort into a winning product on the floor, and we won't be on your ass. And I think that's what a lot of fans were, trying to explain to the players and these beat writers. Like, we're not attacking you. Like, we just don't like the owner here. We think he should sell the team to someone that's more serious about winning basketball games, because over the last 15 years, this, organization hasn't won a lot of basketball games. They've made the playoffs, but they've gotten bounced in the first round for, the last two times they have made the playoffs. I think more fans were directed towards their anger towards Tom Gores, not the players.
Yeah, I don't know why the players took it that way either, because I would never say anything crazy about, I mean, we'll talk about the players like we always do on the podcast, but nothing is just too crazy or out of pocket. And when I've said sell the team, it was never because of the players on the floor. It was just the overall, I just felt like the owner, there are certain owners in sports, it doesn't seem like they care, because like there's no incentive to win basketball games or football games or baseball or hockey games. Like, you get to keep your team regardless. There's no criteria for being an owner in professional sports. You just got to have the money, and that's it. So it's just more of like, dude, you sell the team, give me a guy or give me a woman in place that wants to bring a winning team to Detroit. I would take that over anything. And I don't see that as offensive at all. I mean, I just don't. And it's a little disappointing that the players took it that way. And if Ashton's watching right now, like, please tell Cade we weren't calling out the players. We were just calling out the owner of the team. That's all we were doing.
Yeah, I made it pretty clear. Like, my frustration towards the sell the team chance was not directed towards any of the players. Yep. And like I explained that on Instagram, like, I have no problems with any of the players on the Pistons. I think my frustration as a fan over the last couple of years has been an owner that is just not around, not involved enough, in my opinion. I told you, you get 3 times a year. You get when a player gets drafted, you get a midseason game, whether that's the Lakers or the Clippers, and then you get a April press conference when he comes to town of the whole media swarming him, asking him what went wrong this season, Tom. Like, but that's the 3 times a year you will see or hear from Tom Gores. He's just not available. And another thing, you cannot pat yourself on the back for being a charitable person, because then it just kind of goes out the window. Like, if you want to donate to charity, cool. No one's going to pat you on the back for it. Like, you should do it because you want to do it. You shouldn't do it because you want to brag on it. Like, oh, I've done, multi-billion-dollar deals and I'm a very charitable person. Like, dude, nobody cares about that. They don't. Like, if it's great. You've built tons of basketball courts. You've done tons with his Flint Now project. Like, he's done a lot of great for the community. I'm not saying that, but when you go in an article and say, like, hey, outside of winning basketball, I've done a lot. Like, dude, nobody cares.
Yep. And he could still do that stuff because he's a billionaire. Like, you don't have to do it as the Detroit Pistons. You could just do it as Tom Gores. You know what I'm saying? And you'd probably get more praise doing it that way than you would just saying, like, hey, look at check all these things off. No, the one box I want checked off is a winning basketball team. That's literally all I care about. That is all I care about when it comes for the Detroit Pistons.
It's literally a tax write-off too, so you're not that charitable, dude.
Yeah.
Tax season's right now, man. You need those write-offs, and all that charity is a tax write-off at the end of the day. That's what you got to that's what you got to remind yourself, like, hey, man.
That's true. That's true. So what happens first? Monty Williams resigns or gets fired? Troy Weaver resigns or gets fired? Or the Detroit Pistons go on a winning streak? First and foremost, what is a winning streak? Is it just 2 or more games? So if the Pistons win their next game, it's a winning streak? Or are we saying it has to be more than 3?
So what was your question? Monty
Williams resigns or gets fired. Troy Weaver resigns or gets fired. Or the Detroit Pistons go on a winning streak. What happens first?
Ooh, that's a good question, Lance. I'm going to say them checks are going to keep coming. $13 million a year is great money. You get paid every 2 weeks. So, no, Monty's not going to quit. Troy's not getting fired either. If Troy was going to get fired, it would have been, last week. I'm going to say the Pistons go on a winning streak.
Oh, you're going to be positive. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I just don't like the first two do that. This is a great topic. I love it. But I think what would be more likely is the Pistons actually go on a winning streak versus like the other two. Monty's not turning down those $13 million a year check. Like,
well,
I don't care how many games they lose, dude. Like, I would just be the most positive person showing up to work every day. Like, come on, boys, let's do it.
No, I agree. I mean, I'd be the same way. So a winning streak is just consecutive wins in a row. So the Pistons do have one as of right now. It'd be so easy to pick the winning streak. It'd be so easy. I'm going to say Troy Weaver gets fired. That will be the first thing that happens before the Pistons go on a winning streak. Who do the Pistons play next? Let me just look this up real quick. I got the schedule right here. So they play the Houston Rockets on January 1st, Monday. Ooh. And then
on New Year's?
New Year's.
Oh man, that's awesome. Thompson versus Thompson on New Year's.
Yeah, start of the new year. This is crazy. Kid twins battling it out. Man, and then they play Utah after that. Yeah, I'm going to say Troy Weaver gets fired before we go on a win streak. I know it might be out of pocket, and it is probably pretty negative to say, but I'm going to say Troy Weaver gets fired before the Pistons go on a win streak.
Yeah, I just don't see the first two happening, but I like the topic. I really do. I just thought of a topic that we're going to do before Q&A. It'll be a little bit more positive. So
okay, that's cool.
Just thought one off the top of my head.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So we are in year 4 of Troy Weaver's tenure as the Detroit Pistons GM. things have not been pretty. We already all know that. Now fans are asking for him to be removed as GM. I would like to see a new GM in Detroit. That's where I stand on this, because I'm done with this whole tenure. It's been depressing. I want to watch games with my son, but I don't want him to hate the Detroit Pistons. Growing up and hating them, that would be terrible for me. And now that the trade deadline is approaching, I don't know if I want a GM whose future in my mind is up in the air, making decisions that could potentially set back this organization already, even though we're damn near at rock bottom right now. But what do you want to see Troy Weaver finish out his tenure with the Detroit Pistons, or would you rather see them go with a new GM?
It's hard for me to say because I thought since coming in, he's done a good job of clearing cap space.
Okay.
He's done a good job of getting rid of the bad contracts. Now, obviously, I think his first draft was his worst draft. I think people look at the draft and they see Tyrese Halliburton doing what he's doing when he was there. And Killian Hayes is a fine player. I just tell people all the time, I don't hate Killian Hayes. Because some people think I do hate him. I don't hate him. I just think offensively it's 5 versus 4 when he's out there. I think defensively he's a good defender. He's a good passer. But I think the Killian Hayes draft pick, like I've told you all the time, if he was not your first pick, if Killian Hayes with the 16th or the 19th pick, fans probably wouldn't be on his ass the way that they are.
Yeah.
Isaiah Stewart, I think, good glue guy. I think trading up to get him, that trade itself, it's still haunting the Pistons to this day with the, we don't have the rights to our draft pick right now.
Yeah.
The Knicks still own it. Now, obviously, it's heavily protected, but, if you did want to make a trade for maybe it's a veteran, you really can't unless the Knicks sign off on it. And why would the Knicks do the Pistons favors, right?
Yeah.
Even though we've done them plenty of favors. And then, like, the Sadiq Bey, he's not even on your team anymore.
Yeah.
Like you traded Kevin Knox and James Wiseman for Sadiq Bey, and Sadiq Bey's having a fine good season with the Atlanta Hawks, and obviously you got Kevin Knox back. James Wiseman is playing better, but I don't know, man. That first draft to me was pretty bad in terms of just like value, because you look at guys like Halliburton, you look at guys like Desmond Bane, Tyrese Maxey, that were all there for you, and you kind of missed on them. But I mean, I'm not gonna be too hard on him with that. It was the COVID year, but I don't know. I just don't know if they're gonna move on from him, because if they were, they would have done it already.
Yeah, but man, it seems like, going back to what Troy Weaver was talking about when we did the reaction video last week, there's a part of me that thinks like he doesn't have the most faith in Troy Weaver. So why would you continue to pay him, even though you're not allowing him, from what we've read and what we've heard, not allow him to do his job his way? Like, you're stepping in and you're also making decisions. Like, it seems like you have no faith in the guy. So why continue to hold on to him? Troy Weaver could be the best GM ever, and we'll probably never see it because it's in Detroit and all the other decision makers sitting behind him. So find your guy that you trust, that you're going to give 100% control to, and you're going to stay out of it and allow him to make decisions. Go and find that guy. I mean, why just do this? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's bad. It's just bad ownership at this point. So, like I said, Troy could be a great GM. We'll just never see it in Detroit, and it kind of sucks.
And someone actually wanted me to break down all his drafts, which I can because I have that memory and I'm a sicko.
Yeah.
So we went through the 2020 draft. Killian, Sadiq, Stewart, Saban Lee. Now, Saban Lee, not on the team anymore. I want to say Saban's with Phoenix, but I could be wrong.
I think he's with Utah now, isn't he?
Is he with Utah? I can't remember. I can't keep up. Poor guy. He still follows me on IG, so shout out to him for that. That was the 2020 draft. I thought I thought Bay to me was probably the best pick out of that whole draft class.
Yeah.
To me, he was like the number one small forward in that draft class, and he had a really good rookie campaign. 2021, obviously, we win the lottery. You draft Cade Cunningham. That was great. In the second round, you get Luka Garza, who's no longer with the team. I believe he's with the Timberwolves. He's, in and out with the G League team. He dominates in the G League. And he's a rotational player at the end of the day. I thought he was a good player. Then you have Isaiah Livers, who, man, like he past 2 games, he's been okay. But, dude, recently it's been rough for Livers. He's just not looked like an NBA player.
I know. Real quick, Sid Saban Lee does play with Phoenix, and dude, I hate saying anything negative about Isaiah Livers. He had such a good rookie campaign where he shot 42% from 3. I know it was only 19 games, but God, he has fallen off, dude. It sucks.
Okay, so when we can fast forward to 2022, Pistons get screwed in the lottery, as we know. They get Jaden Ivey at 5. They trade up for Duren at 13, which I thought was probably Troy's best draft, in my personal opinion, because you trade up for Duren, you get a guy that, maybe not a lot of people thought would be there for you. And to me, you got a franchise center at 13. I think he's a guy that you could build with Cade Cunningham. And then you get, in my opinion, one of the better guards in that draft class. Now, I know a lot of people are trying to take their victory laps with Jaden Ivey right now, saying, he's not a good fit next to Cade Cunningham. I'm not there. I know some people wanted Shadon Sharp, Benedict Mather, and I get it. I do. But I think Jaden Ivey will figure it out. It's just, he's in the doghouse right now with Monty Williams. It seems like if he does make a mistake, he's getting ripped out of the game, which I get. He's trying to coach him up, but I still believe in Jaden Ivey. I think he will figure it out. Whether those two, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, are together long term, that is going to be determined on their defensive impact together. Because if they're not defending, they're not going to be together long term. Yeah. That's just my opinion. Maybe some fans have other opinions. I don't believe we had a second round pick in 2022. Oh yeah, we did. Persida, I believe.
Let me look real quick because I have it pulled up. Yeah, 36th overall pick, right before Jaden Hardy.
Yeah, Gabriel Persida, who he's actually doing some pretty good things overseas. I actually did check on him. He's shooting the ball a lot better from 3. I think, staying over in Europe is actually better for his development. Maybe we'll see him possibly next season in the summer league. Who knows? Maybe he'll be with the Crews. Don't know, but it's good to see that he is actually getting better over in Europe. Now we can fast forward this past summer. Pistons get fucked again. They get the 5th overall pick, and they draft Ausar Thompson. They had a second round pick, but they traded with the Celtics to get Marcus Sasser. I think if you just kind of look at Troy's draft, he's good at identifying talent. It's just the pieces. I just don't know when you draft Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey, and then you trade up for Marcus Sasser. A lot of guards on this team. Just makes me think he's not too confident in maybe the 2 guards next to Cade Cunningham. Like, I just don't know. I think he's a good talent evaluator, but to answer your question, Lance, I don't think they are going to move on from Troy Weaver. I think Tom Gores wants to keep Troy Weaver, but Arntellum, it's still ringing in the back of my head watching that interview that Bryce and Amari had with him this last month.
Yeah.
When he said, we didn't see any big fish this past summer. We really like Joe Harris. We think he's going to be a good vet this season. Like, that just rings in the back of my head because he is the VP of the Detroit Pistons organization. He has a say. And Tom Gores saying he doesn't have a say is the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. Like, that's why I say I don't think Troy has full reign of what he can actually do. I think there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen saying, no, we don't want to get that guy. No, it's not the time to make a big splash. We think next summer this summer is going to be the time to make a big splash. Man, you look at this free agency class, it's a pretty old free agency class in terms of vets, which I think will favor the Pistons because they need vets, but a lot of these guys aren't the same players they used to be. Like, I can't wait to see who's going to max out Klay Thompson. I really can't, because it's gonna be funny because he is not the same player he used to be.
Man, we just went down a hole. I hate looking back on the drafts too. I mean, I love the players that play for the Pistons. I mean, I criticized the Marcus Sasser pick just because you drafted him. He's an older rookie. He has played well in the 16 minutes per game, but it's not consistent. He seems like he fits alongside Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, where he realistically should be the guard along with Alec Burks, if Alec Burks is hitting shots, to come off the bench. And I really think at this point, you can just end the tenure with Killian Hayes and just the dream is gone. The dream is dead. It's over with. And he should be getting more minutes. Ausar Thompson, same thing. He should be getting more minutes. It's just, it sucks seeing him sit on the bench because we don't know why it continues to happen. And then the Saddiq Bey trade, I did call it, don't get me wrong, because at the time when Cade was sitting on the sidelines dealing with his injury, it was tough watching Saddiq Bey get tunnel vision and try to be the guy in Detroit. I know we saw a 50 game from him, which was incredible. But looking back on his skill set, he would be a hell of a starter right now playing alongside, or even a good role player off the bench. He would be great with this team, with Cade and Ivey finding him on the perimeter, with him relocating. He could have got back to his rookie ways of being a 3-and-D guy, but unfortunately, I felt like that trade was really premature. I think you lost on that because James Wiseman is not going to develop into the player that Troy Weaver thinks he can or thought he could be. I don't know. I just don't see it. So yeah, there's been a lot of questionable moves by Troy Weaver, and it's just crazy and it's just depressing, dude. It really is. I can't really say much more than that, but I'll just reiterate again, because my first point when we brought up this topic was I want to see a new GM. You know, I said a couple podcasts ago, I want to see how bad this can get in Detroit, but like this win and watching the way Cade has played his last 5-7 games, I want to see a better roster around him, and I want to start winning now, because I do not want to wait till Cade is 27, 28 years old before he experiences playoff basketball in Detroit. I want to see it sooner. I'm a selfish fan. That's what I want. And I don't know. Like I said already, if you're not going to give Troy 100% control of what he's allowed to do, find someone you're going to trust in that same spot.
That's my thing. I think you're just going to have to wait and see what the moves are this summer, because it'll be really telling what this organization thinks of this core. This last week showed me build around Cade Cunningham, because Cade is showing you, hey, I can get you 30 a night if you need it. I can get you 12 assists a night if you need it. The Detroit Pistons need to commit to building around Cade Cunningham. They need to commit to getting him more perimeter shooters. They need to commit to getting him more 3-and-D wings. I think if they do that, this team isn't going to be too far off on what your wish was. They will win more basketball games. They just have to cut bait with a lot of these players on this team right now that aren't actual NBA players. We're probably going to see a lot of these younger players that probably will be fighting for G League and two-way spots next year. Not going to name those players. You guys can go ahead and guess, and you probably know who I'm talking about. I think, having that much cap space, you can do a lot of creative things. I just hope that they don't use a majority of their cap space like they have their first 4 years being here in the trade market, because I think the trade market right now, I just don't think it's going to be as good this next 2 months as maybe, previous years. Like, just saw that the Warriors want to move on from Andrew Wiggins, and that just seems like a typical Piston move, know? Like, nothing against Andrew Wiggins. I think he's a fine player, but it's like you got to get guys that are kind of like those lower tiers. Like, I would love Royce O'Neal from the Nets.
He's
like,
yeah.
Like mid-tier 3-and-D wings. He can defend, he can shoot, he can pass a little bit. Like, I'd love Torrey Craig from the Bulls. I thought Torrey Craig was a lock to sign with the Pistons because of his history with Monty Williams. I really did. Torrey Craig's a fine, good 3-and-D wing. I don't think you have to break the bank to, try to get, mid-tier free agents. That's what I've been trying to tell fans. Like, you don't have to go and try to go get those A-plus guys. You can still get the lower to mid-tier guys that can contribute to winning basketball games. Like, you don't need the superstars. You have a franchise guy that you can build around. You just need to put the pieces around him to make his life a little bit easier. Don't clog the paint, just go 4 out and just let him do his thing.
I'm looking at the list right now. I'm looking at like a Grayson Allen, Gary Trent Jr., even a DeLon Wright. If you wanted to bring him back, I would not mind it at all. He fits right into what you're saying. Yeah, just some guys like that have some, that have dipped their toes in the playoffs, that have won some stuff, that have proven to be like, that specialty role player that can contribute to winning. If we go into next season where Marvin Bagley's on the roster and he's the 10th man in the rotation, that's a win for me. Like if he's your guy where like, you know what I mean? The team is that good where he's not playing major minutes. And it's I'm not trying to offend Marvin Bagley. I've talked about him plenty where I think he has great chemistry with Cade. He's a great lob threat. But if he's your 10th man, your roster is that much better. If guys like Isaiah Livers and Killian Hayes are pushed out of the rotation, your roster is that much better. And those would be wins for me. That would restore my belief in Troy Weaver and this Pistons organization for going forward. I would really love to see it. Bobby Marks tweeted out that Marcus Sasser and Ausar Thompson should go to the G League if the Pistons aren't going to trade him, because if the Pistons aren't going to play them, because it does them no good sitting on the bench. And I couldn't agree more with Bobby Marks. It would be really funny if the crew said, no, we're winning basketball games. We don't want anybody from the Pistons. But anyways, it's a disservice to Sasser having him sit on the bench when he has proven to be a player in this league. He can hit shots. He complements Cade. We heard that from Monty Williams. He's a dog defensively. He shoots great percentages from the free throw line and gets to the free throw line. He doesn't do those things where he jumps in the air and then he tries to pass it off at the last second, causing turnovers. He's a confident player. But if you're not going to give him minutes, send him to the G League where he can get minutes, continue to develop his game, and be ready for when you're ready to play him. And then for Ausar, I would love to see him play in the G League and still play for the Pistons. Let him get some two-way action. Because I think for his development, I would love to see him in a role where he gets to be the playmaker, but playing him in the second unit does him no favors. There's no lanes for him to drive. There's nobody that's going to hit him on the cuts. There's just nothing there. And he looks like a shell of his former self. I know he had a better game tonight where looked like he was playing with a little bit of energy, but he gets pulled so quickly now. And I want to see him continue to expand his game because he can be a very special player in this league, but you are doing him a disservice by sitting him on the bench. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that Marcus Sasser and Ausar Thompson should get some run in the G League?
No.
Okay.
I don't. Motor City Cruise don't need them.
Yeah.
And that might sound crazy if you're watching this. The Motor City Cruise are a very deep team.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Simpson, who went to the University of Michigan, is like their lead guard. He just had a buzzer beater come from behind win against the Cleveland Charge this past week. They came back from 23 down and he hit a buzzer beater with I think 2 seconds to go. They're very deep at the point guard position. They're very deep at the forward position with Stanley Amude. And they have a guy, I can't think of his name right now, but he used to be an NBA player that it's a wing player. They just don't really, I'm sure they would accept a Marcus Sasser. They would accept an Ausar Thompson, but I just don't really think there's a need for them to go down there because the Crews are winning a lot of basketball games. Like they won so many basketball games in the first half of the season. They made the winter showcase. No one really talked about it, man. Like, they made the G League Winter Showcase, and obviously they didn't win it, but they made it. They've won more basketball games over the last 6 months than the Pistons have, if you look at the numbers. Like, they are a very good, well-coached basketball team under, I want to say it's McMillan's son. I can't think of his name right now. I think it's Jamie or something like that.
Oh, why am I blanking on the name too? I want to say Ryan for some reason, but I don't think it's Ryan McMillan. I forget his name.
No, I can't remember his name. I know it's Nate's son, but
are you talking about David Nwaba, the wing player?
Yeah, David Nwaba, dude. He plays for the Crews. He has for the past 2 years. Like, they just don't have room for players like an Ausar Thompson and Marcus Sasser. I think it would just kind of disturb the flow of what they have going on right now. I mean, they just traded for a Golden State Warriors center the other day. They replaced Mike. I can't think of his name right now. It's gonna bug me. Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. He got a 2-way contract from the Raptors. And they've traded for 2 centers over the last 2 weeks. Like, they have depth at every position. They're a G League team that's probably going to have a deep playoff run because they're just a really good basketball team at the G League level. I just don't think sending Ausar or Marcus Sasser down there would do, like, obviously they would get playing time. It would be good for them. But I think just leave him on the bench. I think Asar's too valuable to send him to the G League. He did play a little bit tonight, but I think it's just kind of tough love from Monty because at times he does get out of control, and I think they're just teaching moments. Marcus Sasser, I don't understand it. I think, at times he does get tunnel vision. At times, he doesn't shoot it the best from the outside, but he's still a guy that you invested draft capital to get, and you're not playing him. He's your third string, maybe backup point guard. If you want to categorize him as a point guard, I've always told you I think he's a combo guard.
Yep.
But I don't think there's need for them on this G League team. This G League team is a really good G League team. They're one of the better G League teams in their conference. I think they were like first or second place through the first half of this G League season, man. Like, they were a powerhouse.
Yeah, I'm not saying like just send Ausar and leave him there, but I would like to, like, because I do think it would be beneficial, but I also get what you're saying because the Motor City Crews have been phenomenal this year. Like, I feel like just going to as many games as I can. I mean, I feel like going to watch them more than I feel like watching the Pistons, which just sounds crazy. Man, my headphones are just like falling off. It's crazy. But anyways, I still think it would be beneficial if you could find room for them and allow their games to grow, or let things get messy with Ausar Thompson and let him be a playmaker on the bench unit. It can't be worse than playing Killian Hayes at the point guard. It can't be worse than that. And I would love to see Marcus Sasser. I think he's earned it. I wanted to see him make an all-rookie second team because I really thought that was possible at the beginning of the year with the games he was having. But again, for some reason, he's just been pulled and he's in the doghouse. Like, I don't think we've seen a minute from him in the last 2 games. It just sucks. I just don't know what's going on. I don't know if they're showcasing Killian Hayes. They're trying to build up his confidence again. But if you have to continue to do that year after year after year, then why are you still holding on to the kid? Just let him go find greener pastures. Let him go to a team where he's not going to be counted on like this anymore. I just don't understand the decisions this team just continues to make from a coaching standpoint and from a front office standpoint. None of it just makes any sense, man.
Man, Pistons fans are going to probably throw their phone at the wall when that Woj notification. Killian Hayes is signed for a 3-year extension.
I don't even want to talk about that because I don't think it's going to happen. But God, that would be crazy.
I had heard something recently, and it would not surprise me if he's back on this team next year. Not going to say who it's from because told me not to say anything, but Monty Williams likes Killian Hayes a lot.
He's not Rubio. I don't get it.
This is what I will defend Killian with. Killian is the only player on this basketball team that actually plays 0.5 offense. He's the only player on this basketball team that makes a decision in a 0.5 offense. And it's so glaring when you watch him play because he's always passing the ball. He's making quick decisions. Everyone on this basketball team does not make quick decisions the way Monty Williams wants them. They're like, there was a play. I don't know if anyone caught it tonight. Monty called a play for Cade. I think it was in the third, maybe, start of the fourth quarter. And Cade just looked at him. He's like, I'm going to take a mid-range and pull up. Like, he didn't even pay attention to him. And, like, Monty's, like, waving at him. I think that's why Monty likes Killian so much, and I think that's why he's been getting so much playing time over guys like Sasser and Jaden Ivey to start the season. It's because Monty really likes his ability to make quick decisions. Now, obviously, some of the passes he makes are just like insane, but I've told you before, like offensively, like it feels like 5 versus 4 out there. Like I just won't be surprised if we do get a Woj notification this summer that he has signed an extension with the Pistons. Apparently, they did offer him one this summer, and he didn't like the number.
Oh my gosh, dude. When will this end? And it feels like it's 3-on-5. Let's just be honest. When he's out on the floor.
I did want to tell you that like they did act. I had no idea. Someone had just told me this recently that the Pistons did offer Killian Hayes an extension this past summer, but they couldn't come to an agreement.
Oh my God. I don't even know what to say. That just ruined my night. So Monte Morris, what was the podcast he was on real quick?
The Hoop Chat with Emily Austin.
Okay, so Monte Morris was on the Hoop Chat, and he told Draymond Green he believes Ausar Thompson will win multiple, not one, not two, not three, not four, multiple Defensive Player of the Years. That is high praise coming from Monte Morris right there about Ausar Thompson. I don't know if that was recorded recently or recorded when Ausar lit the league on fire at the very beginning of the year. But again, high praise coming from Monte Morris. I don't know. I think it's hard for me to predict if he's going to win multiple Defensive Player of the Years, dude. It's way too early in his career. That would be cool. That would be cool if he's the next Detroit Piston to do it, joining the likes of Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman, who each won multiple with in a Detroit Pistons uniform. That would be great. I will say that I do believe Ausar Thompson will be a multiple-time defensive All-NBA defensive team member. It's just hard for me to say whether he's going to be a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, though. But what are your thoughts on that?
This was recorded pretty recently. It was recorded last week. And to answer your question, I think he could be, just from what we've saw his rookie year, his ability to lock down SGA. And he's not a guy that a lot of people can figure out. I mean, SGA just posted a picture of a little poem against Anthony Edwards hitting a shot over him. I still vividly remember him blocking Damian Lillard's shot. I remember him, contesting Kevin Durant's shot, and Kevin Durant said, "God damn." His athletic ability to contest shots, his ability to guard 1 through 5, I think is so valuable. And for Monte Morris to tell a guy like Draymond Green, who's won Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, Monte Morris has seen some really good basketball. He's been on some really good basketball teams. And even Draymond has praised him for his defense, saying like, I got to up my game up because, this rookie's coming in here making me look like shit. He's embarrassing me. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to win a Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know about multiple, though, because you got guys like Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
Seems like I look at some box scores on some NBA pages I follow. It's like, oh, Victor Wembanyama had 7 blocks tonight. Chet Holmgren had 5 blocks tonight. I think it would be really hard for him to win multiple, but I could see him winning one because of voter fatigue down the line. If he keeps up this level of defense throughout his, entire NBA career, I think he'll always be an honorable mention, for, NBA defensive teams, or I don't want to say honorable mention. I think he will be, a first defensive team. He'll be in consideration with the national media to make these teams, because that is something that I think a lot of Pistons fans, when they watch him play, they're like, dude, like this kid's a rookie and he's locking down guys that have been in the league for over 10 years. His defensive ability is special. Yeah. There's a lot of things that he does that you can't teach. But man, if he develops his offensive game, man, it's game over. I'm sorry. It's game over. He just does so much smart individual stuff on the court that you just can't teach. Like I'm just praying that he just develops into a two-way player, like develop into a baby Kawhi or a Paul George. Please, man, I need it. I need it as a Piston fandom. I need just that elite wing. We really haven't had that like elite wing. God, you could say like Tayshaun. You could say like Grant Hill. Like we really haven't had a lot of great, elite wings in my fandom, anyways.
No, Tayshaun Prince was he was the best two-way, the wing that we've had in my time of watching the Detroit Pistons. I think it's going to be tougher, though, to win these defensive players, not just because of Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, just because of the new crop of players that are coming up that have had to play defense against these type of offenses from when they were like in middle school all the way through high school, then now in college, and now it's coming to the NBA. I think we're going to see a lot more, maybe not to the level of an Ausar as a rookie, but I think we're going to see much better perimeter defenders come in the next couple of draft classes just because they had to grow up playing against this style of basketball. But Ausar Thompson, you are right. He is very special. I mean, I'm going to go on a limb and say I can't even say that if he'll win one or not. It's just too hard to predict. He is a very special player, though, and I think he'll be in the running for a defensive player of the year, but he'll for sure make multiple all defensive teams in the NBA. What was the topic you wanted to talk about?
Okay, so with it being New Year's Eve, I should say, we're going to play a little game.
All right.
And you have to name 3 New Year's resolutions for the Pistons.
I have to? Okay.
Yeah. You go with your 3 and I'll go with my 3.
Man, way to put me on the spot right now. 3 New Year's resolutions for the Pistons. So are we basically saying things I want to see from the Pistons?
It could be anything. It could be a trade. It could be a rotation. It could be anything that you want to see them get better at.
Okay. 1 would be bringing Isaiah Stewart off the bench to be the backup 5. 2 would be trading for a 3-4 that could start alongside Cade, Jaden Ivey, and Duren. And then 3 would be seeing more minutes given to Marcus Sasser and Ausar Thompson. I made it easy on myself. Those are my 3 resolutions or my 3 wish list for the Pistons.
Okay. So my wish list is getting a stretch 4 this deadline.
I like it.
Now, whether you get crazy and go for Lauri Markkanen, you go for a lower tier guy, get a stretch 4. The second New Year's resolution is I want Monty Williams to not be as stubborn with his rotations down the stretch. I want him to call a timeout before the lead is completely gone. Like so many times he'll sub an all bench unit. It feels like a hockey change sometimes. It's like you have a all bench unit and we have maybe like a 6 to 8 point lead and the bench unit comes in and then it's like a 10 to 12 point deficit when the starters come back in. I want Monty to be more flexible with his rotations and call a timeout when maybe, the lead is getting away from them a little bit. That's my second New Year's resolution. And my third and final one, this one might be
a little controversial.
No, I wouldn't say that. My third and final one would be stop trying to make Deuce a thing.
God, yes. I hate that.
I know that's Cade Cunningham's nickname, but some people, they're like, Deuce, is he talking about poop? Talking about shit? I'm like, no, like Deuce is number 2. Like, just call him Cade. Like, we already have a nickname for Cade. Like, Cade Icewood, whatever. Like, we don't need to throw Deuce on there. Like, I was literally watching, and my mom came down the hall. She's like, did he just say Deuce like shit? I was like, yeah, Deuce like number 2. She's just like, oh. I was like, come on, man. Like, just call him Cade.
And it doesn't make things any better that his number is number 2 and his nickname is Deuce. And they're trying to make Deuce a thing, dude. It's so
like I love Johnny Kane. I really do, man. It's just stop trying to make it a thing, man. It's not.
Yeah, and on Basketball Reference, they say his official nickname is Motorcade.
Yeah, Motorcade's way better than Deuce.
It is. It's way better. Yeah, but Motorcade is tough to say in like a broadcast. Like, oh, Motorcade driving down. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to give him a really good nickname. We got to think of one. I agree with you though, and I hate the bench units. I wish he wouldn't do that. That's such a middle school way of coaching basketball. Like, it's like a platoon thing. We're just gonna send 5 guys out there, bring the other 5. If you're not pressing the entire game, there's no. Oh, I didn't even know they called him Motorcade.
Thank you. Yeah, I did hear that. Yes, Brian Scalabrine called him Motorcade multiple times.
He made fun of Killian Hayes a lot though during that broadcast too. Holy crap!
My guy.
Yeah. The other guy, I don't know who the other broadcaster was for the Celtics, but there was one moment where he was like, he just kept saying over and over again after one play. And I was just like, dude, I don't know what's better, him or George Blah. This is incredible. But Brian Scott really cracked me up. But the bench unit thing, clearing out the bench and putting 5 guys in, that needs to go. Like that is, and dude, give minutes to Marvin Bagley. I don't know why I know Monty talked a little bit about why they were getting James Wiseman minutes. They're trying to get him in rhythm. I just don't understand that. Marvin Bagley's so much better with Cade Cunningham on the floor. Like those two really have something. And he gives you a great lob threat. So I don't know what that is, but I want to see more minutes for Marvin Bagley going into the new year.
Yeah, I think they're trying to showcase Wiseman or whatever reason. I mean, he's on an expiring deal. You know, maybe a playoff team or maybe a lower tier team that's looking for more center depth wants to trade for him. He's in the final year of his rookie deal, which is like 13 million because he was a second overall pick. And I'll probably never see that again. Not in a year, anyways. Might be over like a 2 to 3 year period, but yeah, I don't understand like not playing Bagley because Bagley is one of your better scorers on this team. Which I don't know. I felt like Bagley this year has really proven himself to get consistent rotation minutes, but maybe someone upstairs wants him to play more.
Yeah, because I mean, that would make sense too. But Bagley was playing with so much effort too, even on the defensive end. He'll never be a lockdown defender, but he could be average where he doesn't hurt you so much on the floor. And that's another thing that bothers me. You know, you're doing everything the coach asks, but then the coach still puts you in the doghouse. I don't get it. But maybe you're right. Maybe they are showcasing James Wiseman. Maybe Phoenix wants him or something, or the Portland Trailblazers. I don't know. But it's just weird to see Marvin Bagley sit there when he's capable of helping this team out on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I've told you, you know, Wiseman is putting it together a little bit more. He's getting his confidence. He hit a couple mid-range shots tonight. He blocked some shots. He's getting better. It's just he's had such a rough road to the NBA with injuries and getting drafted by a team that just has expectations that, you know, maybe his development hasn't gone as smoothly as other players in his draft class. Because I feel like when you play for the Golden State Warriors, you're not really going to make a whole lot of mistakes out of the center position. I mean, you think of some of the great centers that they've had, like Bogut and, you know, David Lee, even though he didn't really play center, but like they were, you know, veteran centers that just, you know, they set screens, they played hard, they didn't take a play off. And getting a guy like that didn't play a whole lot of college basketball, and then you got to play behind guys like Draymond Green and others, it probably wasn't the best for his development, but I think there is something there. I just think it's going to take a couple of years just to untap his potential. And I just don't know if it's going to be in a Detroit Pistons uniform because I don't know if they're going to extend him this summer. I don't know if he's going to be just a salary dump to try to get something at the deadline. This team needs a legitimate shot blocker off the bench when Duren hits the bench. Like Monty even hinted to it. Like I have to play Duren longer because I'm not comfortable with the backup 5 position right now.
You could be if you moved Isaiah Stewart to the backup 5. You'd be a lot better. Like, yeah, that makes no sense because if you're not comfortable with who you have, make a change to the starting lineup and bring the guy that is a center off the bench that can help you defensively in a pinch. Seems simple enough. Do we have any Q&A questions?
We have a couple. This was from someone earlier in the podcast. I don't know if they're still watching. They said, "What can we get for Killian and Bagley?"
Just 2 extra roster spaces. I don't know.
I'm not entirely sure what their value is. Killian, I would probably say maybe a lower bench player and a second round pick. I think what his value would be, because I think there are teams. I've told you, I think San Antonio would be a good fit for him. I think Phoenix would be a good fit for him. I think there's value for Killian Hayes, but as a backup bench point guard at the end of the day. For Marvin Bagley, I'm not entirely sure. I know he did sign a $12 million contract a few years ago with the Pistons, but if teams around the league are looking for a bench player that can get you a good, 14 points, 8 rebounds a night, I think there's value for him. But I don't really think you're going to get as much as you probably think you're going to get. You probably get a bench player and maybe a second round pick at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm trying to look this up. Yes, Utah, they could probably use a backup point guard. Spurs could use a backup point guard. Chicago Bulls, even though Colby White has just been crazy. New Orleans could probably use a backup point guard, even though I know they got Dyson Daniels and Kyra, whatever, Lewis. I don't think he plays a lot. And I know they play CJ McCollum a lot at point guard. But, just a bigger guard. And then, like I said earlier, Phoenix Suns, they could probably use another backup point guard because they go with pretty much Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. But I just think I'm sure Killian does have trade value. It's just it's not high right now, and it's probably. I mean, you could look at it 2 ways. I think it's probably as low as it could possibly be. But then again, it was probably always low to begin with, so it might even be the highest it is. I just don't know if a team actually trades anything of value for Killian Hayes. I mean, I guess if you could get a second round pick for him, I would take it. But who knows?
Yeah, who knows, honestly. We can do a few more of these questions because I actually do unfortunately have to work tomorrow morning. Which sucks. This is a question from Case Crack. What fringe moves would you look to do today?
I'll
let you take it.
Well, I'm just thinking out loud where I would highlight players where maybe they're not getting the most of their situations right now. It doesn't matter if they're young or late 20s, mid 20s, whatever. I would find players where they're probably not in the best situation and take a chance on them and see what you could do, especially at that 4 spot. And then I would maybe look at for some lower tier 3-and-D guys or guys that could hit an outside shot. Maybe they're on a 1 or 2 year deal and trade for them and just try to move some of these players that really are more of fringe NBA players. I would try to move them and get some guys that have had a few years in the NBA that could help out your team right now and get these guys used to teaching these guys how to win. But I just don't know what moves are really out there. Like there's just so many holes on this team that you'd have to do a lot before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think you just kind of look at the market, see if you can improve the forward position. Because I like Isaiah Livers. I just don't think he's a rotational NBA player right now. Kevin Knox looks good, but I'd kind of like to upgrade. Not to say that I don't think he should be in the starting lineup. I just think you should try to see what lower tier, 3-and-D wings are out there. And if you can make a deal, make a deal. I can't really think of a player off the top of my head. But I have a feeling it's going to be like Patrick Williams or something like that.
I was thinking too, maybe someone like a Daniel House Jr. for Philadelphia. I don't think he's playing a ton with them, but that's a guy that career 36% shooter, hitting 38% of them this year. I don't know if he's hurt or not, but he's like he can play 2 or 3, decent size at 6'6" and 220 pounds. Good athlete. bounced around the league a ton. That's like a fringe move. I think you can make where he would be an upgrade at some of these positions for the Pistons than what they currently have.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know how active we're going to be during the deadline. We could make no trades, and then we can kind of mock that. Tom Gores. We require change quote all day, and we don't do anything. Maybe change they mean by calendar, like new year, new me. I don't know. This is from Chris. What moves do you want to see Troy Weaver make this season look respectable? Try to get a stretch four. Try to get a legitimate stretch four. I've mentioned Lauri Markkanen, but I don't know how realistic that is for the Pistons. It sounds like the Jazz want to haul. See, Lauri Markkanen just seems like he's going to be a OKC Thunder player at the end of the trading deadline because they have the draft picks that Danny Ainge wants. Maybe his price will, lower as we get closer to that February deadline. But to me, I just think try to get a stretch four at least.
Yeah, I've been mentioning his name these past few weeks, PJ Washington. Like I really don't know what his future is. He's available January 15th, I believe, for trade. So someone like that, if the Toronto Raptors are trying to clear cap space and just trying to go all in on a youth movement, I'd probably answer the phone and see if there's a trade to be made for Gary Trent Jr. I've mentioned his name earlier on this podcast. Looking at some of these guys I would be looking for guys that are going to be that are on 1-year deals that are kind of in prove-it mode so they can get another contract with another team. Yeah, so I'm just looking at guys like that. Like Daniel House Jr., that's a guy I just mentioned. I like him. Yeah, maybe Justin Holiday too for Denver. He's 35 years old, but a guy, he's played some winning basketball over his life. Yeah, maybe even bring in like a JaVale McGee to be the backup. I just don't know. I don't even know how many people want to play in Detroit, though, but I would just start making minor moves. And yeah, that's kind of, it's hard to be specific with this team because I don't even know if anybody really wants to trade for Detroit.
I know that not to change the subject, but I was scrolling on Twitter and I want to give a shout out to Zarek. He went to go place an order on Wingstop and use the code Pistons, and he got an error message from their app.
Oh, so maybe too many people are using the app.
No free wings. Wingstop can't afford it.
They were probably just so casual about it, like, this will never happen.
Oh my god, dude, that is hilarious. I feel bad for Pistons fans, but that's funny.
Yeah, I was gonna try getting some tomorrow.
Man, that's hilarious. Oh my gosh, that's. Oh man, poor Pistons fans. They just want their wings. If you want to tell the people where they can find the podcast, where they can follow us, you can go on and do that. I know we've been getting a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. We've been getting a little bit more Spotify reviews lately, I've noticed.
Yeah, we for sure have. Thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk Podcast. Do us a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, vote in our polls, and more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Peace, guys.